video game can be played by electronically manipulating images produced by a computer program onto a monitor or other display, which gives the user the ability to play with the character or the console that they are using. The first form of video game came from physician William Higginbotham in October 1958, working the Brookhaven National Laboratory Instrumentation Group. Mr. Higginbotham created what is thought to be the first video game. The first version, used in the 1958 Visitors' Day exhibition, included a small analog computer that could display various curves, including the path of a bouncing ball, and an oscilloscope, finished off with a 5-inch display. They called the game Tennis for Two. Pong was one of the earliest arcade video games. It was a table tennis sports game featuring simple, two-dimensional graphics. The game was originally manufactured by Atari, which was released in 1972. Alan Acorn created Pong as a training exercise put to him by the Atari co-founder Nolan Bushnell. It was a great hit when it came out. Move your cursor to get the sides to move so you are able to bounce the ball back into your opponent's half. After Pong came the Mavrinox Odyssey. It was the world's first home video games console, bringing with it a new form of entertainment that users could experience in front of their own homes. It was the first demonstrated on the 24th of May 1972 and was released in August of that year, predating the Atari Pong home console by 3 years. Designed by Ralph Baer, the Magnavox Odyssey was a cartridge-based console that allowed it to play a different game simply by inserting a different game's card. Although the console itself was black and white, the colour was added to the game by use of a screen overlay that attached to the screen as your television.
Magnavox presents Odyssey, the electronic game of the future. Odyssey easily attaches to any brand TV, black and white or color, to create a closed-circuit electronic playground. Odyssey gives you all the exciting action of hockey and 11 other challenging play and learning games for the entire family. Odyssey, a new dimension for your television, now at your Magnavox dealer. He's listed in the yellow pages.
The console was heavily advertised and reportedly sold around 129,000 units during 1974. Although it was released in 1972, each unit cost around $100. Newzoo are the leading global provider of games and esports analytics. Looking at statistics posted by Newzoo on the 2018 global games market, it is clear that the current rise is not something that looks like it will be stopping anytime soon. With console revenue at a staggering $33.4 billion and mobile game revenue surpassing it to reach $62.2 billion. However, it is not only the games console industry booming, but also the esports industry. Esports is where a multiplayer video game is played competitively for spectators, typically played by a professional gamer. By 2020, the esports industry is expected to grow and have a viewer count of around 645 million, with 297 million of them viewers being esports enthusiasts. This alone shows the sheer number of people playing, following, or involved within the market of games. However, the console industry helping people play more aggressive, sexualized games with transgressive practices involved. Nowadays, Mortal Kombat is a very well known and huge franchise within the gaming industry. It is known for being very violent and having very graphic scenes. But back in 1993, with the release of Mortal Kombat 2, there was widespread moral panic as the game promoted violence, and the developers had to create two versions of the game. One version of the game included blood and violent scenes, and the other version, where the blood from the characters was changed to green and violent scenes were removed. This led to the Entertainment Software Rating Board. This is an American self-regulating organization that assigns age and content ratings to consumer video games. The ESRB was established in 1994 by the Entertainment Software Association in response to the criticism of controversial video games being excessively violent or sexually orientated. The European version for this is PEGI.
Enemy care package observed. Stop there, resupply. Enemy care package observed. Stop there, resupply.
The public demand for transgressive games can also be seen within the two of the gaming industry's most popular games, GTA and Call of Duty.
Nature ends on a much grimmer note. Michael is tasked with infiltrating Life Invader, the game's take on Facebook, and planting a bomb in their prototype phone. After the job is done, Michael sits back and watches the unveiling of the phone. When prompted by Lester, he calls the phone, which, when answered by a befuddled Jay Norris, explodes, taking the social media mogul with it. Hello? Oh! Get security!
Both games contain an array of very controversial scenes, ranging from torturing someone in Grand Theft Auto to completing a mission as a terrorist, killing lots of people in Call of Duty.
Snami Bog. Remember, no Russian. Hey. Now? Huh? Now? You ready to talk? I'm ready to talk.
Despite the age ratings of these games being 18 plus, the large majority of players active within these gaming communities tend to be teens and children. This can lead to moral panic. Anders Breivik, born the 13th of February 1979, is a Norwegian far-right terrorist who committed the 2011 Norway attacks. On the 22nd of July 2011, he killed 8 people by detonating a van bomb in Oslo, then shot dead 69 participants at a Workers' Youth League summer camp on the island of Utøya. According to the judgment made against Andreas Breivik, he enjoyed playing violent first-person shooter games and apparently used the game Call of Duty to prepare and practice his shooting. Another case similar to that of Andreas Breivik is the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, which occurred on December 14, 2012, in Newtown, Connecticut, United States. 20-year-old Adam Lanza fatally shot 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7 years old, including 6 adult staff members. Before driving to the school, he shot and killed his mother at their Newtown home. Prior to the police arriving at the scene, Lanza committed suicide by shooting himself in the head. The incident is still one of the largest school shootings in history at either grade school or high school. Some have argued that Lanza's motives were developed by playing the violent video game Call of Duty, which it is reported he would spend hours playing alone in his bedroom each day. Amid the shooting, a report into the violent video games began. Lanza regularly played Call of Duty, and it was speculated that by playing these games, he had given himself a false sense of courage to carry out what he did on the day. Although, it wasn't until further investigation that authorities came to understand that Lanza's favourite games were actually Dance Dance Revolution. Within the video, you can hear people recording Adam referring him to as Adam effing Lanza. His other favourite game was Super Mario Bros. This is also a non-violent game. The shooting led to large-scale protests within America, with people asking for the abolishment of the Second Amendment. This would be the right to bear arms. This was quickly met with a response from the NRA, the National Rifle Association, arguing that the attack was a product of the violent games young people expose themselves to on a daily basis.
Shadow industry that sells and stows violence against its own people through vicious, violent video games with names like Bulletstorm, Grand Theft Auto, Mortal Kombat, and Splatterhouse.
With growing fear that video games are responsible for making children and teenagers violent, lots of studies have appeared to suggest that playing video games can cause children to become violent. Most common theory is that by playing violent video games, children are more at risk of becoming violent themselves or resorting to violence. Various studies have been conducted that appear to show a link. Researchers from Brook University in Canada argue that overexposure to violent video games can cause 13 to 14-year-olds to form a lack of empathy. In Grossman's book, Stop Teaching Our Kids to Kill, he argues that by letting children play violent video games, we as a society are conditioning children to be violent by desensitization to the reality and consequences of killing and to kill.
Enemy care package, sir! Stop there, resupply!
Grossman goes on to argue that children who have played Call of Duty are taught the very mechanics of how to kill. Although, as expected, for every paper that links video games to the violence and the upping of violence, there is another that argues that they are not a problem. In fact, in 2012, a study carried out by Puri found that players who play RPG, role-playing games, had a higher output of empathy and less aggression than those children who did not play these games. Psychologist Albert Bandura coined the term self-efficacy. According to the social cognitive theory, this refers to a person's belief in his or her ability to succeed. Games simply offer the opportunity to change what people think is possible. Moving on, this study also went on to say that video games can act as a form of releasing aggressive feelings and that many researchers agree.
Children who play violent video games, does this show any link to behavior or violence? Right. Parents hear all the time in the media that things like the Columbine killings or the Virginia Tech murders are somehow linked or triggered by violent video games. And the evidence just isn't there. So you can relax a little bit about the big, scary things. The Secret Service, the FBI, others have done reports looking at, is there a pattern to these school shootings? Is there a link to violent media? And they have found nothing that suggests that. These kids have a lot of other problems. In fact, with the Virginia Tech case, in the report, the roommates of this poor young man said that we found it odd that he never joined us playing video games. Okay. It could be seen as a marker of his social isolation, in fact.
That makes sense.
So parents are worried about a child is going on imitating something that they see in a game. We don't see a lot of kids out there with Uzis in the street, even though most kids are playing.
That was Dr. Cheryl Olson, co-director for the Center of Mental Health at the Massachusetts General Hospital. She also teaches psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School. To conclude on that note, video games and the industry itself has become a form of a scapegoat in recent years and has deep roots in the sphere of moral panic. Politicians, academics, and of course the media have all put blame upon video games at some point or another for any form of relatable violence, despite the data saying quite the opposite, showing a drop year on year in violence, while the game industry overall has had a steady increase. With two such contradicting arguments, it is very difficult for there to be a set conclusion, and one can only make regard to whether or not transgressive, violent video games cause children or teenagers to become violent. With such cases, it is quite clear that the debate will continue on into the future. Thank you.